Good evening to our viewers. Once again, I welcome you to the National Crime Prevention's Program webinar series, Keeping Our Communities and Families Safe. Today is the final webinar session. You can visit our YouTube channel at NCPP TNT to view the past 7 sessions. Today's topic is Coping with COVID-19 Financially. I am Major Retired Cheryl Richardson, the National Coordinator for the National Crime Prevention Program. The National Crime Prevention Program is designed to engage, educate, and empower persons to work together in order to achieve safer and more resilient communities. Crime prevention strategies and approaches offer opportunities to reduce the occurrence of crime and the potential harmful effects on persons and society. COVID-19 has created a significant effect on the economy and as such has caused extensive financial stress on individuals as well as businesses. Today we are here with Dr. Cheryl Ann Lewis and Mr. J. Errol Lewis, who will discuss some of the ways to combat the effects of this financial crisis. Dr. Cheryl Ann Lewis is an experienced educator and psychological counselor, having attained qualifications in Trinidad, Canada, and the United States. Her decades of experience in academia has afforded her the privilege of working with students from preschool to the postgraduate level, assisting individuals through introspection and unearthing hidden talents and core aspects of self. She brings to the table a wide multicultural perspective on social issues. Dr. Lewis embraces the core values of hard work and godly wisdom. Our next presenter, Mr. J. Errol Lewis, is a trained mediator and motivational speaker. Mr. Lewis has been with Junior Achievement of Trinidad and Tobago for the past 48 years. He holds the substantive post of Executive Director of Junior Achievement, with responsibility for the company's entire operations in Trinidad and Tobago and support services to 9 other Caribbean territories. He has the distinction of being the first Caribbean appointee to the Member Nation Council of Junior Achievement worldwide. As a member of this council, Mr. Lewis represented the interests of all junior achievement operations in the Caribbean over the past 20 years. Mr. Lewis has been involved in several youth initiatives and more recently was made a fellow of the Americas Project under the auspices of Rice University, the James Baker III Institute for Public Policy, and the Organization of American States. I ask that you post your questions and comments at any point during the presentation, and at the end, time permitting, we will seek to answer most of them. Through information sharing and knowledge building, the NCPP seeks to contribute to change the mindsets, behaviors, and attitudes. We encourage you to join us in our mission. Invite someone to tune into this evening's session. We cannot do it alone, but we can do it together. To take us through this very important discussion on coping with COVID-19 financially, I now invite Mr. J. Errol Lewis and Dr. Cheryl Ann Lewis to make their presentations.
Good evening, and thank you, Major, for your invitation. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share with the public of Trinidad and Tobago what we have learned and what we have been researching and what we've been discussing concerning finance, concerning COVID, concerning surviving within the times of crisis. One of the things Cheryl and I were talking about is the fact that we should not waste a good crisis. A crisis comes along in everyone's life, and it depends on your view of things, how you approach managing that crisis that allows you to survive or to end up on the other side of the process, on the negative side. Today, we want to talk about how can we move our skills and our abilities and all that we have gained to a point where we're not going to be dependent on persons or dependent on society, but we'll be dependent on the skills that God has given to us. So Cheryl and I will be talking to you for the next couple of minutes, and we hope you will enjoy it.
Well, good evening to everyone. And it's certainly a pleasure for me to sit with you wherever you are and to share with you some of our thoughts about how you will survive financially through COVID. You know, one of the good things that my brother was saying just now about not wasting a crisis. And in fact, one of the things that fascinated me is the language that came along with this crisis. Prior to now, I did not even think about the word COVID. So COVID became a new word in our vocab. And then there were some other words that were there. It's just that we weren't using them. I knew about quarantine, but quarantine was for animals. You know, you brought something from somewhere, we knew that. Stay at home, we all know about that one. Parents told us that. Grants, job loss, and food bank. These are words that were current, but we weren't paying any attention to them. And it drives me to the fact that none of those words that we are seeing now came outside of the current vocabulary, the current alphabet that we have. And I thought, well, why not use the alphabet? Why not ask people to use that alphabet to create the words that they can then use to help them through financially?
And even after we are through with this exercise, they can build on what we have done using the alphabet and using what we have said. And when you look back at what we've done, you can probably build your own alphabet and build your own vocabulary so that you have a language that takes you along as you go through the rest of your given time on this terra firma.
Yeah. And in fact, somewhere along the presentation today, I'm going to teach you a new word. I'm going to save it a little further down in the presentation.
Yeah, we can't give away everything.
Right. So we started with alphabet. Everybody knows about the alphabet. We sang it as children. We know it.
Are we going to sing it this evening, or we just?
No, we won't bother to sing it at all. So we're going to start with the first letter of the alphabet. Actually, what we're doing on a serious note is to use those letters to help you find your way through finances. And so that's a cue for you.
And make it user-friendly. Make it easy. So we go to the slides right now.
Yes. So presenter,
Producer, we can go to slide number 1, which is A. And A talks about acquiring a positive attitude towards saving. One of the more fundamental things we have to do as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago is encourage people to save. Saving is something that is alien, particularly in one segment of the population. I dealt with youth a lot, and a lot of times young people know how to spend. We know we want to earn, we want to spend, but we have not really worked ourselves to the point where we understand the necessity to save.
And this is why we say save well enough to spend a good life. Right? So you're saving to spend. But because behavioral issues are the things that I like, I looked at, it says, when we're using our letter A, we are acquiring a positive attitude. And I looked at the term attitude. You know, we use attitude a lot now. Everybody says this person has an attitude. And but I understand attitude to mean that it is a word that is loaded. When we think of attitude, it has a cognitive aspect of it. So there's a thinking behind attitude, and we're talking about acquiring a positive attitude to saving. There's a thinking. There's also a behavior with attitude. So it's cognitive. There's an affective. There's a way in which we present ourselves. So when we are looking at that financial, as we ride the wave of this pandemic, and if we want to stay afloat financially, the attitude, acquiring that behavior, the affect, the thinking behind how we do things is critical.
Let's go to the next letter. B. A plan that divides your known income into the following areas. B. Budget.
Budget, and most people think of budget only when it's read through
In the parliament.
But this is not, you know, as even as you are in, maybe as a student, whoever you are, this you can budget, because
Yes.
all you're really doing is planning.
You're planning, yeah.
A budget is a plan, and it divides you divide your plan into needs,
Mm-hmm.
wants,
Mm-hmm.
and in that plan you must have a plan for your debts and the repayments.
Mm-hmm.
But what about needs? What do you think needs are?
Sometimes what we what we describe as a need may be just a desire.
Yeah.
And so we need to drill down into the process and ensure that it is entirely what it is described as a need. And when you're budgeting, you must make sure that you really go down and understand that these are bare necessities even that you need to go forward with. And it's not something that you desire, it's not a want, and it's not something that is frivolous.
Well, they tell us that the needs that we actually do have, it would be a need for food, which includes water, a need for shelter, need healthcare, right? In 2020, they're telling us there's several other needs. The average young person will tell me that you need a phone, but
you really want a phone.
You really want a phone, okay?
And even you have to get one, you don't need the most expensive.
Right.
You need one that's functional.
Right. So while we are saying that you need to budget, you need to budget smartly. So when you're budgeting, you're looking at what you actually, and you need to sit down and kind of have a conversation with yourself sometimes as to what it is that I really need. Is it that I really need this thing? Because need says, if I don't have this thing, I will not survive. If you don't have a phone, will you survive?
Yes, I will.
You probably will.
And if I don't have the most expensive phone, I'll still survive.
I'll still survive. So that sometimes you have to put some of those things in your wants. And the other thing that, you know, sometimes people don't budget for is payment of debts. So you owe, and, you know, sometimes, you know, you walk away and forget about the debts, and then they come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So as part of the new normal, you know, everybody's talking about the new normal. The new financial normal for you must include a budget. And that's your B word. And
we must be very careful about the debts that we acquire and accumulate, because many times we access or we satisfy our needs or our wants by going into debt. And then we have to choose the kinds of debts that we take, because a lot of the financial institutions, the interest rates, the cost of the debt is very high. And we find people going into some financial institutions, names I will not call because I don't want to go to courts, but there are people who would offer you access to appliances or access to some things, but the cost of that access is so expensive that you may prefer to save it on your own and then purchase, as against going and taking a higher purchase somewhere.
And as you said that, you know, something I remember growing up as a child, there was that post-Christmas syndrome of the bailiff.
Yes.
Where people told themselves that they had a need to get certain things for Christmas. I must have a new living room set. I must have. And so they will acquire these things, forgetting about that repayment. And then soon after Christmas, you know.
Up comes the bailiff.
Right. So be careful when we look at our needs.
Yeah. And then we go to C. C says, curtail unnecessary activities. The kinds of habits that you form, the kinds of unnecessary behaviors that you acquire, even unnecessary things that you eat or drink or act out. You have to be very careful, because all of those things cost. There's a cost attached to the unnecessary liming, the unnecessary time. Your time is your life. And if you spend your life in a way that it does not bring a return on the investment that you've made, spending that life, you would end up in debt. You would end up indebted to yourself. You will end up looking back and saying, but you know, if I had done and if I had and if I could, I should have, would have. What you need to do is to be very careful to curtail the unnecessary activities that will consume your time.
And be careful. I mean, nobody's saying that you don't have any free time to enjoy yourself. But activities, as you're saying, cost something.
Mm-hmm.
It's either you're paying upfront with your fun, you're having fun upfront, and then later on, you've lost the opportunity for career.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we do some of that. We've lost out on
Mm-hmm.
things. And one of the problems we have in our society is that by the time you get to 30, 40, and you're now recognizing, oh my, I really don't have a career. You want to go back to school,
Mm-hmm.
but by that time you've started a family.
And the cost has increased.
Right, and so you are now interfering with the child or the children's career path,
Mm-hmm.
because you are trying to go to school,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to go to school because they ought to be going to school.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be very conscious about activities that are necessary at a point in time.
One of my mentors used to say postponed gratification.
Yes. Yeah.
So you put off until sometime in the future
Mm-hmm.
enjoying something. So you curtail the activity now. And it's not that you're depriving yourself absolutely,
No, you don't.
but you postpone the gratification for that.
Mm-hmm.
Down the road, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Next letter, D, downsize. Downsize. Cut big expenses.
Yeah.
Cut down some of the things that you don't need to have. That car at the moment, you probably can buy a smaller car.
Mm-hmm.
You probably don't need to rent that huge house. You probably need to live in a smaller environment. You probably don't need to have a certain kind of activity. You're going to be having a wedding. You probably don't need to have 200 people in the wedding. You could use the cover of COVID and tell people that because of social distancing, I should only be able to have a certain amount of people. You use that as an excuse. But you can downsize your expenses, your expenditure, downsize the way you operate with something, because it gives you the opportunity to be able to utilize what you have in a much more financially responsible way.
Because sometimes we create expenses that are not necessary. A lot of our expenses may not be necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, those that are necessary, we sometimes embellish them with things that you don't need. And we were talking about weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a number of people say, well, I can't keep my wedding because I don't have enough money and I have to go and take a loan.
No.
And actually, no matter how many people you invite, there might be somebody you missed out.
Yes.
And somebody's going to say, well, I wasn't invited. So downsize. Manage what you have well. Stay within the amount of money, work within that budget that you've set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So
I read an article once that said the rich get richer by being poorer. Because they don't spend the kind of money that some of the people with less available to them spend, because we want to create an environment and we want to show this one. Right. You don't need to impress anybody. You can downsize the whole process. Mm-hmm. Let's go to E. And what does E say? Embrace the entrepreneurial spirit. Yes. The fundamental thing about moving forward during this post-COVID environment is to understand that the entrepreneur is going to be the major driver in the economy. The person who is able to get the mangoes from the mango tree behind the house and put it on a tray in front of the house and sell it to the people who pass by the house, that person is going to be bringing funds into the economy. The person who's able to go into the backyard and plant a tomato tree and let it grow so that you can sell to your neighbor or sell to someone down the road, that person is creating additional income. The key to survival right now is to be able to create additional income. You will not be the person that is looking for employment, but you're the person who's creating employment and allowing yourself to employ other people.
And we saw a lot of it happening through COVID. Face masks.
Yeah.
Man, you can get all kinds of face masks now.
Yeah.
I'm seeing those with flair, those with all kinds of things written on it. And I thought, just last year, we knew nothing about that.
No one was purchasing that.
No, nobody's, and everybody's getting a bit of fabric somewhere and they're making. So one of the things that I feel, in terms of generating keeping the economy going, is you sitting back and deciding, what can I do? Because we have to move away from that whole concept of looking for a job. the era has passed when you left school and you then went out and you applied for a job and you waited and then somebody gave you a job. Most of you out there, some of you have been sending things out and nothing's been coming in. Why not use that energy? Sit back and say, what can I do well?
What skill or talent or ability do I have that someone else needs? And at what cost do I give them it?
And that's how we move.
That's how you move forward.
That's the entrepreneur.
And the service environment is going to provide a lot of opportunities for people. People can bake bread and sell it to their neighbors. People can do things that they have the talent and the ability to do. You can clean, you can cook, you can provide services.
You can paint.
You can paint.
And not only
you can do small repairs. You can do household repairs. A lot of people now have taken advantage of the time that we were at home to repair our homes. And if you have that skill, you could parlay that into making. Yeah.
Just one thing though, a lot of our young people went into business studies in school, and you say, well, what can I do with a business study? You know, there are small business owners, small shops, the mini marts, who don't know how to do their books. Here's another idea. You know how to do, you did accounting in school, and you can help them set up a system so they can work to
manage the business.
There are opportunities for you out there.
There are opportunities for the entrepreneur. This is our special word for the day, and I will allow you to introduce it.
Yes, I created a new word, frugonomics. And I got it from the term frugal. And one other word that we use for frugal, this is the refined term. We say somebody's frugal. But we in Trinidad and Tobago, we say that you're kind of stingy if you're frugal.
You're stingy, you're mingy, you're milk-pilling.
But frugonomics, I think we need to move back to that position of being frugal. When I travel abroad, I learn a little more about that approach to life. It's the first time I shop with coupons. You know, we in Trinidad didn't bother with coupons, but coupons are extremely useful when you're out there and you can get 10 cents off and 20 cents off, and it adds up. So be frugal. Look for bargains. Now be careful when you're looking for bargains. Some of it might not be a bargain.
Cheap thing not good. Good thing not cheap.
But be careful. Look for bargains. Look for all the things that you tell you can get a discount. And sometimes we just ignore them. Sometimes an item comes and it says, if you mail back this whatever, you can get a rebate of $20, $25 or something. And we ignore that. But be frugal, use those things because it will get you to the next level.
And you find now that certain people in certain age brackets can get discounts. Like if you're in the Trinidad and Tobago Association for Retired Persons, you can get a percentage off. You know that you can shop in some stores on a particular day so that you can get a percentage off. And then if you go to put some of the bigger supermarkets and so, there are apps that you can use and you can get percentage off. I remember growing up, we used to have gold bond. So this whole question of using coupons is nothing new to the environment.
There's no shame in it either.
There's no shame in it. We used to be pasting on these gold bond stamps and red scissors. Red scissors stamps. So there's nothing, it's not new, and we should reintroduce ourselves to that whole concept of being able to save using apps, using coupons, using shopping on certain days, and being aware of when there are sales and when you can find to get off, you know, on some things.
Good.
And we go from frugonomics to G, which says get familiar with matters of finance. Don't allow yourself to be hoodwinked because you did not know. Knowledge is power. And we also say that networking is power. Networking is power. But the knowledge that you gain, the more you read, the better you speak, the better you write. You need to read, be acquainted with what's happening around you, be acquainted with what's happening in the stock market, be acquainted with what's happening with banks, what's happening in the savings environment, be acquainted with what's happening in the economy. really be acquainted with what some companies are doing. The business models are changing. Some companies are deciding to go in a different direction with what their business model would have been. Be acquainted with that, because it's going to help you as you navigate forward.
Marketing, there's a whole new world online.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID has taught us that we could stay at our homes and do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that primary school and preschoolers would have been able to be engaged in the online platform.
Mm-hmm.
And so get acquainted with what's happening with marketing particularly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get out there? How do you find yourself? How do you promote yourself?
How can you acquire things without even moving from where you are? And
And
understand that when you start being an entrepreneur and you start marketing your goods or skills, do not restrict yourself to just Trinidad and Tobago, because the world has now become available to you based on the fact that you can do a lot more than you've done before by just going online.
The world is a small village.
Yeah, it's a flat place that you can work with.
Yeah.
So get familiar with matters of online. We move on quickly to H. H says,
All
of our help when you need it. Don't sit down in the corner like little Jack Horner and suck your thumb and just say, oh, poor me, oh, I can't make it. No, because that places you in a position where you now have to rethink your process. And if you need help, ask. There are agencies, there are persons, there are opportunities outside there waiting to be handed to you if only you ask.
And I just thought about the fact that, we grew up in a society where education has always been a very competitive environment. And I guess part of that has led us to feel anytime we ask for help is because we are not up to standard, and we feel badly. I mustn't say that I can't do something, because we're very competitive, our whole.
But culturally in this country, we used to help one another. We used to have Guyap. We used to have Lenhan. We used to have opportunities where, and if you don't know what Guyap and Lenhan is, I'll explain to you. If I had my field to plow, you would come and help me plow my field, and then next week I will help you plow your field. That way we both got what we needed to get done, but we helped one another. That way, that cohesion of the society working with each other must be brought back in order that we work and move forward together. The community working with each other. If you need to go out and do a job, there's nothing wrong with someone helping you to take care of the child at cost. And you can volunteer to take care of somebody's child at cost. Of course, you have to be careful about all the rules and regulations. But certainly, there are ways in which we can help one another. And if you need help, ask.
And be careful as you look for help.
Be careful who you ask for help.
Don't just go asking willy-nilly.
I. We're going on with the alphabet.
Yes.
I. Invest. Invest. Yes. Investment does not need thousands of dollars. Investment does not need a huge input of money. Investment needs an attitude, a startitude.
Oh, a new word. New word, you see?
Start. You know what I've been doing over the past couple months? Every time I got a $5 bill and change, I would save it, and then I would put it in the credit union, so that I wouldn't spend my $5 bills. Some people, I encouraged one of my daughters to save $1 bills, because she just started to work. So every time she got a $1, instead of spending it, she put it aside and put it in the credit union. That way you built your investment portfolio. The investment does not necessarily mean that you have to go out and invest on the stock market, which is a good thing to do, but you have to start somewhere. And the starting somewhere, you can start small.
And another person told me about a unique way of saving, and I like it. You start off with, let's say, $1 on the first day. On the second, is it the second day or the second week, $2. The next one, $3. And you keep building, and by the end of the year, you have a sizable amount.
There you go.
And that's one way of investing. Of course, you then take that and you put it in some interest-bearing kind of facility that will allow you to get something more than you put in.
So you have to be creative, and we're creative people in Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, of course we are.
So that use that creativity to come up with a way to use the money that passes through your process and be able to invest. Let's move to the next letter with J. Justify your spending decisions.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the biggest argument you have is with yourself. And sometimes you argue and you cause yourself to make decisions that you should not have made. So be very careful about being able to justify how you spend, and don't con yourself into making a decision that you should not make.
Have a good reason for what you're doing. When you justify, so that you don't do the impulse thing.
Yeah.
I go down the road and I feel to get it and I get it. So justify, look at it and weigh. See that scale that you're looking at? It's weighing. Should I spend or save? And give good reasons to yourself for doing either one.
And take away the phrase "a feeling for" before spending. You know, yeah, a feeling for this, a feeling for that. That should not precede your spending decisions. And our next letter is K. Know your rights. Know your rights as a consumer. Many times we go to shop in the supermarket and we just take things off the shelf, not understanding that within our rights, there are date stamps on the goods that we purchase. And therefore you should be able to distinguish whether you should purchase something that has a shelf life of a certain amount of days remaining, because it is your right to have the proper goods when you go out there to purchase.
Something that I'm seeing happening, there are some goods that are displayed and it's not written in a language that you can understand.
Yeah.
And it is your right to have something written because you need to know what it is you're purchasing. So we need to adopt that attitude of finding out what it is. What are my rights? Am I entitled to? Yeah.
You need to know your rights. Our next letter, as the alphabet that I was taught went, L. Live on less than you make.
Yep.
Don't hang your hat where your hand can't reach.
Yes.
You have to be careful, extremely careful. And I love that hat that was hung right there.
Nobody's wearing anything like that. So. Probably don't hang your mask.
Your mask,
right? We're making sure that we keep aware of the pandemic. Do not hang your mask where your hand can't reach.
You have to be very careful when you make decisions, life decisions, that you don't extend yourself to the point where you end up in a position where you're screaming for help, you're in debt, you feel as if you're drowning because you made a decision up front that allowed you to extend yourself to that point where now you're in trouble.
Yeah, and sometimes, unfortunately, you have to expose yourself in a way that you didn't plan to. You may have to be, a TV camera is coming around showing, you at your worst.
Yeah.
And we know that you can do better than that, but you for some of whatever reason, you found yourself in difficulty.
Or you gave up.
Yeah.
You gave up your right. You have to give up some things now because you extended yourself. And let's go back to that original thing when we're talking about indebtedness. Because sometimes you went out there Christmas time and you made the spending and you bought gifts for everybody. No, everybody's not entitled to a gift. It's not an entitlement. And by the time January, February comes along, you end up having now that you've hung your hat and they're coming back for it, and all the neighbors and all the people you gave gifts to see that they're taking it. Or even when Carnival comes around and you decide, I must play, I must play mask. But the cost of the costume is so exorbitant that sometimes you may want to bypass that or play in a cheaper band or be a spectator because you do not want to live on more than you make. Live always on less than you make. Don't hang your hat where your hand can reach. And M says, make shopping plans.
And let me tell you one thing with the shopping plans. One of the things that I've learned, and you should try to practice, when you go in food shopping, do not shop when you're hungry. Keep that one in mind. Don't do food shopping when you're hungry. That, and I'm sure you're probably saying, yeah, I remember going to buy things that you don't need. because you're hungry, you just pick up things and you fill your basket.
Mhm.
And then when you, why did I buy that? Huh?
I have to tell you, I have discovered that the supermarket is designed in such a way that it manages
Yeah.
your shopping for you.
Yeah.
If you notice, when you go to the supermarket, you will always enter and take the cart and go down one aisle every time you go. You will enter and go down that same aisle and come down the same one and then go down the next one. And they have designed that in their process. And what they've done also, they've placed some things by the cashier that would seek to take
Indeed. The
Yeah,
chocolate that you're trying not to eat?
yeah,
It's right there.
the magazine with the screaming headline that has nothing to do with what's inside. All of those things are things that you don't necessarily need, but they've placed that there to attract your attention and get the last bit of money that you
Right.
have in your pocket.
Come with your plan. Make your plan. And
Make a list.
Don't do like a certain person who I know well. You make your plan indeed, and you leave it at home. Right? But we have smartphones now, and so you can make your plan and put it on your smartphone.
So make shopping plans.
Yes.
And N says, a nest egg is necessary.
Yes.
Get one.
And that whole concept of the nest egg came from the farming community.
Mhm.
And most of our young people now have not grown up around chickens that are laying. But to trick the chicken to lay, they used to put false eggs or eggs in it. So you put some more eggs, and they thought, the farmers believe, I haven't proven it scientifically, but they put those eggs there to encourage the hen to lay more. And so what we're talking about is set aside a little something that will allow you to put more on it, because the fact that you're seeing that, oh boy, I saved so much, you want to put a little more.
Yeah, when you track its growth, it encourages you to invest more. I remember when mommy used to have these laying hens, she would always leave an egg there.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that did, it encouraged the hen to go back and lay.
Right.
If you removed it, what happens is that
another nest.
they look for another nest. So if you place that nest egg, it encourages you to go back consistently and continuously to invest in it. So that's the N. Have a nest egg, get one. O, organize well. Organize. You know, sometimes some of us could be a little bit disorganized. Helter skelter. Whatever happens, happens. But if you plan yourself, your process properly, and you organize into doable bites, you'll be able to accomplish a whole lot more than if you wait for it to happen and then you start trying to make it happen.
And that graphic tells us a lot. So several things you can have. You have an agenda, you have daily goals, you have weekly goals, you have projects, you have things that can motivate you, you have a to-do list, right? Planners.
Plan the timing. When you start, organize yourself. You know that even organize when you get up in the morning, how you operate, what you do first, what you leave to do in the evening. Because sometimes in the evening you want to slow down. So that in the morning, you know that some of the things you want to be able to do in the morning will be these things, and you leave these things to do in the evening and these things to do at night. And sometimes you want to do some things today because you have to get it, you have to feed into something tomorrow. So you organize yourself and you're not able to be all frazzled when you have to do stuff.
It's particularly with finance, you need to organize well, because if you have finances and sometimes you have wealth laying around that you have not done anything with, and some of that wealth is yourself. We talk a little bit about self down the road. But yourself is wealth that you can utilize better. I've seen a lot of our human resources and we sometimes waste them. You pass by corners and people with very good brains, and they're sitting there and they're not doing, and that's not organizing your wealth well enough.
And Miles Monroe said that the cemetery is a very rich place because a lot of unfulfilled goals, because people didn't organize themselves, end up in the cemetery. So we go to our next letter is P. Prioritize financial decisions. What are your wants? What are your needs? We talked about that earlier, and it is so critical. It is so critical that we place priority. There are things that you know you could do without today, because you want to live through today to be able to access tomorrow. Prioritize your financial decisions. Sit down and critically look at all of the decisions you need to make in terms of your finances, and then decide which ones have more weighting than the other, and which ones should be waiting a lot longer to be accomplished than the other.
And that is one of the areas in which you can holler for some help. If you don't know, ask somebody.
Ask somebody. And our next letter. Hey, we ain't do too bad. Q.
Q.
Quantify the risk.
Yeah.
Quantify your risk.
Evaluate.
Yeah.
Because everything that you do involves some measure of risk. Okay? And so you need to evaluate and see, how much risk can I take here? Even when you're spending, even when you're saving, you look at where there's risk. If you know you have need for money, short-term need for money, you probably cannot put in stock on all of that.
In a post-COVID environment, risk is a word that is now very prevalent. And risk means that you have to even measure where you go, when you go, how you go, what you go for, and with whom you go. Because you have to, at the end of the day, you're putting yourself and all of your resources out there, and you have to be able to say, I have done the best that I can do with what I have. So you have to quantify the risk.
Right, and when you manage risk, you reduce the negative effects that it would have, consequences in you.
S.
Q,
R. Reserve for retirement. Hey, did I miss my alphabet in school? R. Reserve for retirement.
And if you're thinking, and if you're 17 and you feel, retirement, that's not for me. Or you better start your retirement plan as you start working, because retirement, and you're hearing it from me, is not an event. It's not an event that happens when you turn 60 or 65. It is a process.
It's a process.
It is a process.
Was I 17 just the other day?
Okay,
oh, Jesus. But I'm not pre-retirement. Retirement is something you plan for. It's something you position yourself for. It's something you even propose to the people you're working with. Because, like you said, it's not an event, it's a process.
And it begins very early.
It's very, very early. And there are instruments that you can put in place. Personally, apart from the companies that you work with or the other people that you're involved with, there are some things that you can do personally in your plan for your retirement. And one of the fundamental things that you'll have to look at is saving. Saving and investment. You plan for your retirement, you save and you invest, and there are all kinds of instruments that will support that.
So that you don't have to go back out to work once you get to a certain age when you should be enjoying yourself. Sometimes if you didn't plan the whole process of retirement, well, you find yourself way up there and having to go out there. Struggling. Not because you want to, but you have to.
Because you have to. S. S says save, save, save. And saving, we've talked about it several times already this evening. Saving is so critical in the process for us to be able to survive post-COVID. We used to have all kinds of instruments of saving. And one of the instruments of saving that we had was Susu. I don't know if we spell it correct right there, but Susu, it's not a spelling exam. But Susu was
it's called Lenhan, I think.
Lenhan. Lenhan in some societies is called Lenhan. Partner hand in some societies. It's the same thing. And it has come, I have to tell you, it crossed the Atlantic. It came here through the Middle Passage. Because if you go to a lot of the diaspora, the African diaspora, you'll find versions of Susu. And what does it do? It builds trust. Because
camaraderie as well.
Camaraderie. You have to pay, I have to pay. We all invest in each other's development and each other's movement forward. And it's interest-free. It's an interest-free instrument. So why not? Instead of going and taking something on a higher purchase, why not, as they used to say, throw a susu hand.
Throw a susu hand.
Throw a susu hand. So you're able to save, save, save,
Save.
save. T, take control of spending and debts. We can't hammer that too much this
No,
evening.
make sure, take control. Don't create debts that you don't really need. Evaluate whether you really need this debt or not.
And we mentioned earlier, don't use a feeling for the emotional spending that you
Yes,
have. I just feeling to get it. Said, I have to get, I must. There's no must bound to. You, the only things that you must do will be to take care of your health, and you must take care of your saving and so. But when at the end of the day, you will find that there are some things that you thought you needed before that you lived without. So take control of your spending and your debts. You
understand your spending triggers. When we think about a trigger, we're thinking about something that prompts you to get something else. And one of the things is that sometimes we spend because of emotional issues. I got angry and I just went out and shopped. Actually, I have a colleague, and it's interesting. If she's listening, she would be laughing. Whenever there's something emotional, she takes a good shopping. Go out and spend money. But that's something that you need to manage. So emotional triggers. Sometimes we have stress. You're under stress, and you go out there and buy things. Sometimes we do something and we reward ourselves. I did so well. I'm just going to buy, and you spend
go out and eat
unnecessarily.
You have to be careful. Maybe you should utilize the resources that you have. Give yourself the meal, but cook it yourself.
Yes.
But one of the triggers that we have to watch, taking the children with you when you go shopping.
Yeah, I want this, and then
they start pulling things off the shelf. They start asking you loudly in the company of others and embarrass you into buying. That's one of the triggers. Maybe you should just hire a babysitter. It will cost you less. So understand what triggers you to spend. Volunteer. Volunteerism is something that we have to rekindle in our society. Volunteerism, when you understand that when you volunteer, you're actually removing the cost of the exercise from someone. And if I volunteer and you volunteer, the cost of our existence is reduced. We have to be careful that we get back into a mode where we support each other through volunteerism, through the church, through clubs, through other societies.
Whichever religious group.
Remember that used to be in a friendly society. You volunteer because it allows you to be able to accomplish a whole lot more by utilizing skills and abilities that are available in the people around you.
Right. And it helps teach new skills. You learn new skills. And then another good thing is with volunteerism is that you expand your network.
Yes.
That's something that is critical.
Networking is power. Your ability to be able to call on the support of others, other institutions, other persons, friends, relatives, and others to support you as you move forward. That network is going to be able to help you. So volunteer. We want to encourage that. W, watchfulness.
Be watchful of your monies. Don't just put your money there. Some of us put monies in accounts and we never bother. Be watchful. Be watchful of your investments. Whatever you invest in, your education, and if we're talking to a number of young people, you've invested in education. Pay attention to what you're doing with it. Pay attention to the trends in markets. Pay attention to things. Be watchful.
Remember what we used to say before we left primary school? Before you leave, before you cross the street, use your eyes, use your ears, and then your feet. You have to use your eyes and your ears. Let your senses come into play before you make certain decisions. Be very watchful because you never know. Your ear may trigger you to hear something on the news, may trigger you to hear something in the conversation around you. Your eyes may trigger you to see something that says, no, you better not make this decision now. Be very watchful as you proceed forward. Before you use your feet, be watchful. X says, use the experiences of others, and nobody's checking us for spelling right there. So it's not E, it's X we're looking at. And it says, use the experience of others. Smart people learn from their own experiences. Wise people learn from the experiences of others.
You don't need to experience everything. You can use the experience. Sometimes you say, well, experience is the best teacher. That is not necessarily true. Experience is a good teacher when you learn something through experience. But if you don't have to experience, you don't need to experience breaking your leg to know how it feels.
No.
Right? So experience is not always the best teacher, but it is a good teacher. But learn from the experiences of others.
Learn from the experiences of others. Just because someone told you that this would occur does not mean that it is right for you to take that decision. You ought to be very careful to manage how you utilize the information of others.
Okay.
So X. Let's go to the next letter, which is
coming to the close.
Y. Yeah, we're coming down to recess.
Yes.
Or is it question time?
Manage your health.
Manage your health. Health is a costly thing. It's going to cost you your life.
Yeah.
So you had better be very careful as we move past all of this exercise, as we go post-COVID, that you manage your health, the habits that we acquire. And habits are acquired.
Yep.
And just as we acquire some habits, we can drop them.
Yes, we can.
We can drop them. So we have to be careful to manage our health. You know, the things that we think that we could do without, we should really take a second look at it. And one of the things that we've been saying that we could do without is exercise. We need to manage exercise, manage diet.
Yeah, manage it from early.
From early.
Think that, well, I don't really need to pay attention to that. I'm not ill in any way. But that why that we're talking about is you taking charge of you. Yeah?
Manage. And we're down to, how do you pronounce this letter? When I was in primary school, we called it Z. But since Sesame Street came on the television, everybody called it Z. So we're into the last letter of the alphabet, the Z letter of the alphabet. And the Z says, zone zeal using good reasoning.
Yes. Sometimes you have a lot of zeal. You want to get out there, do. But you need to manage that well enough. And don't just say I'm managing, but use your head.
Yeah.
Use your head, use your brains. Good reasoning as you use your zeal.
Because zeal, unless it is properly entrapped with good decision making, could cause you to get into some serious problems. You're excited about some things and it's not the right timing to get it done. So that's our alphabet for this evening. And we want to go to our questions. You see me pressing my phone here. It means that I'm trying to see how we can get some questions in. So we have some questions. You can text your questions in. I think that will be told to you. The platform you can text it to. But I have a question here. How much money do you recommend someone save? Is it a percentage of your salary, should you say?
I think when you're talking about how much, we can't give you a figure, but you need to first remember, decide on what your needs are. Once you've worked out your needs, the rest of it you can consider a portion as savings. Of course, you have some entertainment things. I'm not saying just only pay for food, shelter, clothing. You need some little recreation. You need something, but make sure that your savings would be more than that.
And the thing about saving is you must be able to manage your desire to enter into the saving frivolously. So when you start saving, whatever you've decided to save, for whatever reason you've decided to save, always make sure that you keep that in focus and you don't just run off and say, oh, I had the save up there, and you go to the account and take it out, because that defeats the purpose of you putting that saving there. So there's not a real figure that we can give you, but that's a personal decision you have to make. The second question, what would be your advice to persons who are already out of a job and were optimistic about getting work, but due to COVID, job search becomes more difficult? One of the things I would advise people who are out of a job, look at the skills that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Do an evaluation of yourself, of your skills and abilities, and see what are the marketable things that you possess that you can now offer to the community, to the society in which you find yourself. I remember years ago, there was a pilot who in Trinidad and Tobago who lost his job, and he moved from being a pilot to being an entrepreneur, and he started to make these little figurines of pan men out of wire, and the guy became fully employed, and these things are still being sold in the stores in Trinidad and Tobago. So you have to look within yourself. There are skills and abilities that you have that you can now parlay in the environment in which you find yourself. And then another look that you take, apart from looking at yourself, look at the society, you look at the environment in which you find yourself, and you will see needs that would be coming up in that environment, and you say to yourself, how can I satisfy that need? And what skills or abilities do I have that I can satisfy that need of that person or of that community? And then you'll be able to move forward.
One of the things that you can also do in this period is to use that time to learn something new. And because there are a lot of courses available, I know the state has provided a lot of places that you can go to learn something new while you wait. Don't
and
sit
there are
just
grants, there are all kinds of opportunities, but you've got to do the research to be able to find out how to use what is available to you. Another question, investing in the stock market can be difficult to understand for the layman. How can the process be made simpler? Well, I have to tell you, I don't know if the process will be made any simpler than it is already, but what will happen is do the research. Read, and after a while you will find that it is more simple than you thought, and that you don't have to go and be looking at Wall Street and all the people screaming and the one running around with papers and so, but visit the stock market in Trinidad and Tobago and ask the questions there. And there are brokers all around this country who can help you to manage your investment portfolio. So it's not difficult. You tell yourself that. And sometimes we have to change the conversations that we have with ourselves, because we will talk ourselves out of opportunities a lot more times than we talk ourselves into becoming richer.
By saying, I can't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Another question. As a single mother, I tend to spend money on bills, food, transport, and the children. After that, saving money is difficult. What is your advice to save in this instance?
Well, you know, even if at the time when I was a student, and this is a real issue, I was working for very, very little money. And I would save pennies and 5 cents and stuff like that. And it seems like it's insignificant, but it goes a long way. So while it's daunting when you look and say, gee, I have this and all of this goes, but there is some little residual that you can put aside. It will grow slowly, but it will grow.
But it will grow. I will give you a perfect example. When I just got married and we purchased our house, things were tough. But I would have change, I mean pocket change, coins. And every day I came home, I would put the coins in something. I would put the coins, and there came one day, I took a little thing and I went with, and I interfered with my coins, broke the piggy bank. And I was able to fill my tank with gas because I had saved my coins. Every coin adds up to every dollar. Every dollar adds up to every $1 million. You've got to start somewhere. And therefore, don't be thinking that you need to save, well, hundreds and thousands, but start with one, start with the cent. Well, we don't have cents in circulation again, but you can use the 5 cents and 10 cent pieces and the 25 cent pieces and save them. Sometimes, you get a piece of money,
you
didn't expect to get it. Save. Another question. I invested most of the money in a new business. However, my business took a hard hit from COVID-19. What can you recommend? Evaluate your position. Sit down, take it apart. Make a conscious evaluation and be honest with yourself at what occurred. look at what occurred and look at what you have remaining, and then start looking at the opportunities that would present themselves to you based on what you have remaining, based on the opportunities that are available to you in the community, in the space that you find yourself. And you would realize that there is still room for you. There's still a space for you to be operating. There's still something that you can do. Yeah. Do we have any more questions? I don't think we have any more questions. If we don't have any more questions, I don't know if you want to stay looking at my good-looking face or her pretty face. So we wanted to really thank you, Major, and all of the staff for inviting us and facilitating us this evening. We hope it was an hour well spent. But so we turn right back to Major Richardson, retired.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis and Dr. Lewis. It was indeed an hour well spent and a very interesting spin on teaching us how to manage financially. We manage not only our resources, but we actually manage ourselves. So thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation, very enlightening. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the first phase of our webinar series, Keeping Our Communities and Families Safe. We wish to thank you for joining us. It was indeed a pleasure and a privilege for us to be able to engage with you and to share relevant information from our experts. I want to take this opportunity to say a very special thank you to all our presenters who have willingly imparted their knowledge and experience gained over years in their respective fields. They were able to edify us through discussions on emotional and mental well-being, domestic and intimate partner violence, taking care of the elderly and persons with disabilities, personal home and business security, and coping with COVID-19 financially. We would also like to thank you, our viewers, for your participation, your questions and comments. We are pleased that we were able to sensitize you about measures that you can use for your safety, security, and to create and improve the quality of life. The good news is that further webinars are being planned. I encourage you to stay tuned to our social media platforms at NCPP TNT for more information on phase 2 of this series. Stay with us and encourage others to join us in our mission to create a national culture of crime prevention. We cannot do it alone, but we can do it together. I am Major Retired Cheryl Richardson, the National Coordinator for the National Crime Prevention Program. Once again, I thank you for joining us. Be safe and be blessed. Thank you.